But we begin with a Target 12 Investigators exclusive school scandal.
Show of hands. How many of you were subject to naked fat tests by Aaron Thomas?
There's so many times where people who had the ability to do something right and they chose to do nothing.
Speaking out. 5 former North Kingstown students sit down with us for their first television interview, sharing their stories about how they were subjected to so-called naked fat tests by former coach Aaron Thomas. Target 12 first broke the story about how these disturbing closed-door interactions went on for years.
Now the district is the focus of a federal civil rights investigation, and the Rhode Island Attorney General is examining whether criminal charges should be filed. Target 12 investigator Tim White is here now with the exclusive interviews.
12 News concealed the identities and altered the voices of the former students for this interview. We referred to each of them using a letter, student A through E. And in a stark reminder of how long these inappropriate tests had been going on, their ages span decades. When I say the phrase shy or not shy, what does that trigger in you?
Oh man.
Were you asked that?
Oh yeah, every time. And I didn't want to be not shy because my entire childhood I wanted to play varsity basketball for North Kingstown. You know, a lot of my heroes were ex-players that played there, you know. People I looked up to, especially him, so I really wanted him to like me. I wanted him to respect me.
Student D's story is strikingly similar to those of dozens of others, if not more, who attended North Kingstown High School. They were brought into then basketball coach Aaron Thomas's office and asked to remove their clothes for what Thomas called fat testing.
You just put a lot of trust in a guy like that. As an incoming freshman, you're trying to play for him. North Kingstown, pretty competitive program, won the state championship a few years ago. And when you have a guy like that asking you and telling you need to do these things, you kind of do it just to please him and just to show him that you are all in for his program.
Student B says he was first subjected to a naked fat test in middle school during a basketball camp.
And it was from an older kid at camp, and we were all talking about fat testing, and he says, flippantly, he'll ask you if you're shy or not shy, but just take your underwear off because that's what everybody does.
It's completely changed my life. I went through a battle of addiction. He took advantage of me when it was a vulnerable time when I lost my dad, and it's tough.
Coach should be there for a kid who lost his dad.
Yeah, and that was the worst time. Right after I lost him was by far my worst experience with him.
E, did you tell your folks?
Absolutely not. While I was a student, there was a permission slip to some extent. That permission slip did not outline being naked in the windowless room with Coach Thomas.
As an audiovisual teacher, Thomas had an office at the high school with media equipment, including a closed-circuit camera outside his door that students say acted as an early warning system if anyone approached.
There was times where I was naked on the floor, and another teacher approached the door from the outside, and he would stop the fat test and he'd say, "Just a minute," or something like this.
Yep.
Or there are times where he'd step out the door while you're naked. And he'd say, just a minute, be right out.
More than once while I was completely naked in his office, whether it was a teacher, a student coming to do the same thing after me, he would slip out the door, talk to a student, five minutes, listen 5 minutes, come back in, continue the test.
When you think back at your time at North Kingstown High School, can you think back at that and not think about what happened to you?
Nope, no, absolutely not.
And even for me, I was a big-time athlete, good at basketball. I didn't play after my freshman year.
Me either.
And due to that, it stripped me from even being able to play a sport I loved in high school.
Have any of you guys ever been approached by the school department, to either apologize or say, how can we help?
Never.
Absolutely not.
None of you guys?
Never.
Never. They just deny.
We talk about this.
That's what's been continually upsetting.
Amongst ourselves.
Silence.
Yeah.
Silence.
The lack of appropriate outreach and reaction from the school department has done nothing but compound the insult and injury that's rested upon these kids. And frankly, these families throughout the system that I've spoken to.
Attorney Timothy Conlon represents multiple former North Kingstown students. He says the interview with Target 12 was the first time all 5 of these former athletes were in the same room at the same time.
You go from an environment where you effectively feel muzzled and incapable of saying things to reach out for help, to an environment where people are reassuring you that indeed your speaking up is welcomed.
For student E, who is the youngest of the group,
it ruined a sport that I absolutely loved.
The older members of the group say they tried to raise red flags about Thomas but got nowhere, allowing Thomas to continue his behavior with new generations of teenage athletes like student E. Should he even be here?
Absolutely not.
No, and I think so. That was one of the driving forces for us speaking up early on. And we had a couple goals. One was to make sure it doesn't happen to anyone else and isn't happening to anyone else. And 2, something was broken and we needed to fix it. And so we didn't know that it was still going on when we first kind of started out, but we didn't want to take that chance. We were like, look, we have to keep pushing this on the off chance that it is still going on today. And it was a punch in the gut to hear that it was still going on, so many years after we experienced it when we did.
The punch in the gut was not to know that it was still going on, was to know that people in charge knew about it, knew that it was deceitful, and chose to do nothing. And I still get angry about that.
Through an attorney, Thomas has repeatedly denied any wrongdoing. He has not been criminally charged. Attorney General Peter Nerona told 12 News on Tuesday he's within weeks of ending his investigation. Coming up in the next half hour. Aaron Thomas might be watching this story. What do you want to say to him? Our investigation into the North Kingstown school scandal continues, new at 5:30. With the Target 12 investigators, Tim White, 12 News.
Our Target 12 investigators exclusive school scandal continues right now.
I thought he was a really good person on the outside, and then obviously once behind closed doors we saw who he truly was.
In their first television interview, 5 former North Kingstown students speak out about years of inappropriate behavior by former coach Aaron Thomas, who conducted so-called fat test on them while they were naked and alone with him in his high school office.
New at 5:30, what they want their former coach and school leaders to hear. Target 12 investigator Tim White is here now with the exclusive interview.
All 5 of the former students had the same message for those who led North Kingstown schools during the years Aaron Thomas was coaching there. You were warned and didn't do enough. Student A, Aaron Thomas might be watching this story. What do you want to say to him?
You affected the lives of a lot of people. A lot of people. And I hope you're remorseful.
Does anyone have a message for Aaron Thomas? Or is it not worth it in a weird way?
No, it's not worth it. It's not worth it. This has never been about Aaron Thomas.
No.
It's never been about him. It's about everybody that's enabled him.
Yeah.
So what's your message to them?
Do more. Do your job.
Atone.
Do more.
Atone. Like, literally, like, what? Ask yourself, what can I do to repair this?
We were let down so many times. A lot of people didn't believe us. A lot of people felt like it wasn't that big of a deal that we were naked in the room.
What do you say to those people who think that?
At this point, when the story first broke, like, they were there. They've dwindled. They've dwindled dramatically. And honestly, like, personally, I ignore them because it's just not rational thinking these days. I actually want to say, like, the outpouring of support that we've actually gotten, to kind of flip it around, from the community has been tremendous.
We've learned North Kingstown's then superintendent was told about Thomas's fat tests in 2018. The school purchased equipment meant to end the tests from happening in the coach's office. But as you will hear new at 6, students say the naked testing continued, but under a different name. With the Target 12 investigators, Tim White, 12 News.
School scandal in North Kingstown continues online. That's where you can see our previous reports on these so-called naked fat tests. Hear from the victims and stay up to date as new information develops with this story right now on our website, WPRI.com.
Our Target 12 investigators' exclusive school scandal continues.
We kept coming back to, all right, 14-year-old boy in a room, naked, on school property with their teacher and coach.
5 former North Kingstown High School students are sharing their story after they say their basketball coach routinely asked them to strip naked for so-called fat tests alone in his office. The school attempted to change how the testing was conducted in 2018.
Yet, as you're about to hear, these students say the testing not only continued, it expanded into something else. Target 12 investigator Tim White is here now with the exclusive details.
After Target 12 brought this scandal to light last fall, Attorney General Peter Nerona launched a criminal investigation. On Tuesday, Nerona told us he is just weeks away from a decision. Raise your hand if you think Aaron Thomas should be charged criminally. Every single one of you. Without hesitation, all 5 of the former North Kingstown High School students who sat down with Target 12 believe their interactions with then basketball coach Aaron Thomas were grossly inappropriate, but they took even more issue with how school leaders handled the situation.
In my mind, it's deliberate indifference, any way you look at it. He paraded children into an office throughout the school day for decades. It doesn't matter if they knew what was going on inside or not, it's deliberate indifference.
So, by being silent, they enabled
all
of it.
Yeah.
Mr. Auger, can we have a minute here?
I don't have a statement right now. We have statements.
No, that's okay. An independent investigation commissioned by the North Kingstown School Committee found then Superintendent Philip Auger was told of Thomas's fat test program in 2018, though Auger has denied that he was told the students were naked.
So regardless of the naked or not, I do believe that he should have looked more into it, did more about it, and found out for himself.
Do you harbor any anger toward him for that? Because, you know, ultimately you ended up in the same situation as these guys.
Yes, most definitely, and I think it was even more angering when he released his resignation letter and denied all wrongdoing. That is shameful, and he should be ashamed of himself for that.
Auger stepped down in March, telling the school community in a letter, "I remain steadfast in the knowledge that I acted appropriately and immediately in the best interests of students past and present." Timothy Conlon, an attorney for several former students, says many of his clients took issue with that resignation letter.
But let me tell you, they hear loud and clear when someone resigns and acts like they're doing a favor for the town and refuses to acknowledge even any missteps on that person's part. That does not go well.
People that were in charge, the administration, they kind of lost sight of what their responsibilities were, in my mind.
The same year Auger was approached about Thomas, the school department spent $5,000 on a body composition machine that was placed in the boys' locker room to measure body fat out in the open. One of the students says he recalls what happened next.
Yeah, a machine was brought in, and I was still subject to what he called puberty tests, in which I was naked in his office. Just once again, I mean, he didn't do the typical skin caliper method of testing after we got the machine, but I was still subject to random puberty tests.
I experienced something to a similar extent where he would run his hands over my abs down towards my groin under the pretext that once you hit puberty and start to develop muscles, you'll get cut there. You'll get muscle cuts there. He would do it between your pectoral muscles as well. But yeah, largely the outside edges of your abs leading into your hips He'd trace his fingers along that, checking to see if you had hit puberty.
All the students say they're happy. So much change has happened since they first shared their stories, from resignations to town, state, and federal investigations. Now they hope that by speaking publicly, they'll encourage others to do the same.
What I've learned is you don't need to know how you feel about it.
Exactly.
In fact, talking to somebody is how you'll figure out how you feel about it.
Yes.
And I think what I've learned is that I'm pretty pissed off about it. And, you know, and that's kind of gone away as I've made connections with other people, because, you know, I don't carry that on my own. I see that they're doing it too.
And speaking up doesn't only help yourself, but then again, it can help make change.
Yeah,
it can
exactly.
help awareness. So that's also important.
If it's happened to you, please come out. We've all, obviously I did not know who these guys were before I spoke out, and it's nothing but support from my parents, these guys, other people. Know you're not alone, and when you feel the time is right, speak out.
Through an attorney, Thomas has repeatedly denied any wrongdoing. In addition to the Attorney General's case, the U.S. Attorney's Office has launched a separate federal civil rights investigation into whether the school district failed to respond appropriately to reports of sexual misconduct. With the Target 12 investigators, Tim White, 12 News.